If you've ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix or have any other scary story you want to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to send it my way. And of course, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Aaron. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I have a story that happened to me 12/30/2023, recently, in Big Bear, California. Here is my recount in detail of what happened to me and the geography of the land. I went on a day trip with two of my friends to Big Bear Lake, California, to hang out and snowboard. It was a regular beautiful day. We left to Big Bear around 5 a.m., got up to the mountain and to the summits to the park around 7:30 a.m. We got redirected to park down the road. A couple of miles to a parking lot, we followed the signs and made it to a huge gravel lot. No buildings around, just porta potties, and the area that the trams pick everyone up at to head up to the Bear summit. When we entered the lot and parked, we were facing away from the mountain towards the direction of the lake. The tail of the truck was facing the mountain summit. Remember this later on in the story. We got on the tram and went up to the mountain for a day of snowboarding and hanging out. It was a great day. It was beautiful and we got lucky that it was snowing. I stayed in the bar area waiting for my two friends to come down after snowboarding. Both of my friends came down to join me in the bar. We hung out and just talked. As I was sitting in my stool, a nice older lady came up to me and asked if she could sit there since there were no other seats and the place was packed. I gave her my friend's seat and she hung out with me and my friends while her kids were up on the mountain snowboarding. It was around 3 p.m., and one of my friends went back up the mountain to do some more snowboarding. He only had an hour left before his lift ticket ran out at 4 p.m. Me and my friend and the lady are sitting, talking for a good hour, with her kids and her. It was around 3:15 and she says that she has to go. I got sad inside that she had to leave as I was having a really nice time just chatting. This is where it happens. As she and her kid are walking out of the bar and into the blizzard snow outside, me and the lady both look at each other for a moment as I was sitting on the stool, and said goodbye silently to each other. I looked into her eyes and boom, I instantly went from sitting on a stool in a bar to an empty gravel parking lot at nighttime. I physically felt the shift, and I had to catch myself from falling because I was in a sitting position and then landing in a parking lot. All I heard was the gravel smashing under my feet as if I fell out of nowhere. I instantly had my hand up to catch my balance and looked forward. Both of my friends were about 10 feet in front of me walking to the truck. The truck was in a different location, now facing the mountain summit. I could see the lights that light up the mountain. I was so in shock that I couldn't believe it, and I started yelling at my friends that this isn't the right lot, that we didn't park here so close to the bottom of the mountain. They instantly got mad at me and started to argue, saying, "Aaron, this is the lot we parked at. It's the only lot." I say no, we parked far over there, away from the mountain in another lot. They were still angry with me, so I shut up and realized what had happened, and that no one would believe me, so since I couldn't ask my friends as they were packing their gear, I walked around dumbfounded. What had just happened? I asked other people in the lot if they remembered parking in this lot, and they all thought that I hit my head and was crazy. It was the worst feeling I had ever felt. I felt so alone. But wait, this is where it gets interesting. I screenshotted a pic of the map of the area. It was at 5:56 p.m. I lost about 3 hours of time, but I instantly jumped from the bar up in the mountain to the gravel lot on both feet. I knew that no one was going to believe me, so after I got back home, I went and told my father what had happened, and explained it in detail. I said that we parked in a huge empty lot with no buildings, and then ended up in a smaller lot at the base of the mountain, and the truck was now facing the mountain, and that I had been jumped to the lot from the bar. So he goes, well, let's Google Map it. With my luck, the Google Maps showed the huge big lot we first parked at when we got to Big Bear. Then we found the second lot that I ended up at, and there was a huge building next to it. So we had mapped it out, both lots, and the bar up at the lodge at the ski resort that we were at. He saw what I was talking about. Both lots did exist. The story happened to me had compelling evidence that something had happened. 2 days later, we both went to go look at the Google Maps of the lots and talk more about it, and that first big lot was nowhere to be found on the map. The road had changed, and there were houses next to the lake where the lots were supposed to be. Then, we found the second lot that I was shifted into, and I couldn't believe it. The second lot looked like the first lot, and the second lot merged together. They had half and half characteristics of both lots. I was pissed that now I had no evidence and my story looked crazy, because there was only one lot now. But my father was stunned and he couldn't believe it either that the other lot didn't exist anymore. It bothered me for a couple of weeks to ask my friends about what had happened up on the mountain. I finally asked one of my friends how I was when we were at the bar, because I have no memory of how I got down the mountain. He said, fine. I go, you remember us talking to that lady? He says yes. And then I say, I was fine in my right mind, so how did we get down the mountain? He goes, you were fine. We were all talking and we got on the shuttle and went down the mountain to the lot. In my mind, I know for a fact that that was not me talking with my friends from the point the lady left to when I got to the lot. So, it must have been another me that was taking my place with my friends, and then I was shot back into that reality of a different lot. I hope that this recount of what happened to me can help others, or help in researching why these things happen, or are going on. Did the lady that I was talking to know what was going to happen to me? Did she jump me into the lot? Because that was the last thing I saw before I was dropped into another parking lot. This is going to bother me until the day I die, because I know what happened to me. It was very personal, and I want to know where I was for 3 hours, and who was talking with my friends as me when it wasn't. Was it my doppelganger? Any information will be well received, and I hope that this finds who needs it, and I hope that this finds who it needs to, or if you travel to Big Bear, beware that time slips are happening up there. I'm going to make a trip soon to visit it all again to try to find answers. Thanks, much love, and peace to all of you. I'm sure that most people have that experience where you're looking for something, only for it to turn up in the place where you know you have previously looked, and you know that when you looked there you would have noticed it, and there's no way that you would have missed it. I've experienced this many times throughout my life, and would usually, like I'm sure many people do, put it down to simply not being observant enough. However, something happened to me many years ago that makes me think it isn't as simple as that. It was the early 80s. I had just left college and was looking for employment. This was many years before the internet, and unless you were lucky enough to respond quickly enough to an advert in the newspaper, the only way to find employment at the time was to attend employment centers or travel around and ask companies if they were hiring. I was still living with my parents at the time, and because they lived at the doorstep of a town or city, I had to catch public transport to access these. Anyway, I had managed to get an interview with a company. I'd gotten myself ready and began looking for my prepaid bus card to make the journey for the interview. However, No matter how much I looked, I could not find the small plastic wallets that contained the card. I had no money in the house. This was before everyone had a debit card and mobile phones, so I couldn't contact my parents or brother, who were all at work and were out of reach of landline, to see if they had seen it. I had checked all the usual places, but to no avail. And I was becoming exasperated on what to do, and was thinking about going to our neighbors to see if they could lend me the money to make the trip. It was at this point that I sat down on the couch and put my shoes on. Now, my parents owned one of those old flat record players with a large clear plastic cover, and it was sat on a cabinet next to the arm couch. I remember looking at the top of this record player numerous times as I scanned the cupboard looking for the wallet. I had even lifted the plastic lid to look if the wallet had ended up on the deck when the lid had been lifted. Nothing. Once again, I looked on the top and scanned the cupboard one more time before putting my shoes on. It was at this time that I heard a noise to the side of me. It wasn't a particularly loud noise, but it got my attention. All I can say to describe the noise is that it was as if you dropped a light object onto a heavy surface from a small height. As I turned to look in the direction of the sound, my wallet was in the middle of the record player's plastic lid. Now, those feelings of I'm sure I would have seen it if it had been there were compounded by the fact that I had even lifted the lid on a couple of occasions, and if it was actually on the lid in the first place, it would have fallen down the back of the record player. Now, over the years, I have often thought about this incident whenever I mislay something, and lo and behold, it will reappear in a place where you know you put it, and have already looked. I've never, though, witnessed again the totally weird circumstances surrounding the missing wallet. For it to be left on the plastic lid and be found in the same place after the lid has been lifted numerous times defies logic. Not only that, but to hear the noise that attracted me to the place where the wallet was is also astounding. Did my wallet cease to be for a short time, only to exist again after a period of time? I can't answer that, but it still freaks me out to this day. There is a happy ending to this tale. I took the trip to the interview, got the job, and stayed there for a large portion of my working life. So, maybe someone was looking after me that day. I have never posted a story before, but I am a recent fan of Glitch in the Matrix stories. And I saw something last week that I feel like I simply cannot explain. This is the only place that I could imagine telling it. My boyfriend and I just returned from a 2-week-long desert vacation that included Bombay Beach, Joshua Tree, and Death Valley, among other places. We live in the south, so this was a big trip for us. Leaving the Death Valley area just after breakfast, we were driving through a tiny, desolate town. The only types of towns on this trip were either very small or completely empty. As we came to a corner, I saw a woman standing on the sidewalk on the left side of the car. I say that I saw a woman due to the femininity of the features. But what I actually saw was 2 long legs in black pants, with a shoulder and an arm directly atop the legs. There may have been a head, but if there were, it was facing down into the other side, so I could only see what I thought was a small bit of hair. The right arm, the only arm visible, was outstretched and completely parallel to the ground, and a medium-sized black purse was hanging awkwardly from it just above the elbow. Now, I understand that people are built differently, and not everyone will have the same physical makeup, but with the structure that I was seeing, there would literally be no way to house internal organs of any kind. This was different. Not only was there no torso, but I couldn't guarantee there was even a head. Without taking my eyes off of this sight, I said to my partner, in hopes that he was also seeing what I was seeing, "Is that a mannequin?" He replied, "God, I hope so." It was at that moment that the feet started to move and the legs propelled the woman forward, walking awkwardly, not bending the knees at all, purse still swinging from the arm, and it started walking towards the street, towards the car. Fortunately, we needed to make a right turn at that corner. As we did, I looked in the rear view, hoping to see a person simply unfolding and lifting their head to reveal a full structure of sorts, but I didn't. I only saw the same haunting figure, with no torso whatsoever, and only the potential of a head swaying behind it. I watched as long as I could and nothing changed. Still robotically walking forward, still just long legs and an arm with a purse. We've talked about this just about every day since it happened, and both of our stories are exactly the same. Could this be yet another glitch in the Matrix? I'm constantly getting my mind blown. I swear it's exciting to see these things happening in my world. However, it is a bit unsettling because it's hard to really accept the fact that we may actually be living in a simulation. If we were, then I wish my creators, or players, or whomever, would make my game less boring. Anyways, on to the story. So, I go to the laundromat every 2 weeks, give or take, and as of recently I switched to a newer, more kid-friendly laundromat since I take my 2 youngest children with me. This particular laundromat is right next door to a Subway, the sandwich place, not an actual station. Well, I decided Saturday that once I put my clothes to dry, we would head over to Subway to kill some time and get lunch to take home. I bought 3 subs. 2 of them were 6-inch, with plain white Italian bread. However, my oldest daughter only had meat on the 6-inch, and my youngest had all the fixings. I also had one with all the fixings, but mine had a different type of bread and was a 12-inch. We get back to the house and decide to go to the neighborhood play area that has benches to sit on, and enjoy our lunch there. I only bought 3 sandwiches. I passed them out, and we ate. We didn't finish, so I wrapped them back up and took them home to put in the refrigerator. Later that day, I grabbed the rest of the 12-inch and finished it off. My youngest daughter got hers and warmed it up on a plate and ate a little more and then put it back in the refrigerator, still on the plate that she had used to warm it up. Fast forward to Sunday. Last night, my older daughter, the one with the sandwich with only meat, went to finish her sub, and this is where the glitch is. She gets the last sub out of the bag, and it's a duplicate of my other daughter's sandwich, with all the fixings. Confused, she's asking who ate my sandwich. So I think, well, maybe the other daughter got hers by mistake, and so she took hers from the plate and unwrapped it, and it was her original one with all the fixings as well. What the hell? I know for a fact that neither subs were mine because, like I said, I finished mine the day before. Plus, it was a different type of bread. I know the older daughter only had meats because we watched them make it at the store, and plus, she ate some at the playground. And there's no way that she would have been eating it with all that stuff on it, as she hates it. So what happened to the other sub? And how was there another sub that I never ordered and was never in the bag to begin with? Hey Raven, I'm freaked out and I'm not really sure what to think of this. So, this just happened to me this afternoon. I woke up super late, not feeling well, and was running late to a meeting. Frazzled, I hurried out of the door into the parking lot towards my car. I have to park a little ways down from my unit as there is limited parking. As I was walking to the car, I could see two people at the dumpster across the lot, about 15 yards from my parked car. They were dumpster diving, which is pretty common in my area, and honestly doesn't bug me as long as they put the trash they don't take back in the dumpster. I hate litter bugs. Anyway, they looked like they had just gotten there, with one in the dumpster handing things to the other who was fluffing out an empty plastic bag to store their newly found treasures. I watched them out of curiosity as I rounded the front corner of my car to get to the driver's side door. While stepping off the curb, my Crocs slipped on some mud, causing me to fall back. I grabbed the side of my car and I was able to get my feet back under me. When I regained my composure, I looked back to the dumpster, half expecting to see at least one of them giggling at me for being so clumsy, but there was no one there. The dumpster was closed, and there was no one else in the lot. The exit to the lot is about 100 yards from the dumpster, so there's no way the one in the dumpster could have gotten out and closed it without me hearing. It slams loudly, let alone taking off out of sight in the 2 seconds that I slipped and caught myself. I honestly began to question whether or not I had seen anyone at all. But I distinctly remember seeing them, with the one in the open dumpster rummaging and the other fluffing up the trash bag. And if there was no one else, I would have seen the mud and avoided slipping, as I, being clumsy, tend to watch my footing, especially in places where I know there will be mud. So then there had to have been people there that I was distracted with originally. Did I slip, hit my head, and die in another universe? And got transported to this universe where there weren't dumpster divers? I don't know, but I had to sit in my car for a few minutes to convince myself that I wasn't losing it. So far, the lack of dumpster divers seems to be the only difference. But I'll let you know if that changes. Hey Raven, I'm not sure if this is a glitch or not, but it definitely boggled my child brain at the time. When I was roughly 10 years old, I had a bunk bed that faced a big window in my childhood bedroom. I remember every night I could look outside at the stars and occasionally see the moon drifting by. One night, I was propped on my elbows facing this typical scene, and I remember I was thinking of what superpowers I would have if I could have one. At the time, I was very into superheroes and playing pretend with my friends. I distinctly remember having this thought of what power I would like, and looking outside. Mid-thought, I blinked. And suddenly, the nighttime stars that I was just looking at was replaced by morning light. Now, most people would say you were a child and you just fell asleep and woke up, but I was still propped up on my elbows in a position that would be extremely painful to be in for a long period of time. The reason I bring up what I was thinking during this was because as soon as I saw that it was morning, I thought, time travel would be a cool power. When I got out of bed, because apparently it was morning, I went to find my family to get ready for the day in the kitchen. And no one believed me that I had time traveled, but it was an experience that I remember very clearly. Hi Raven. I've been listening to your podcast on Spotify for about 3 months now, on and off, and it's amazing. I remembered I also had a story to share. After hearing someone else ask the question, what changed in April, I'm assuming they were referring to 2023, as that's the last April that happened as of when I'm writing this, but I'm not sure. I apparently have an entirely different memory from my family as well, starting with events that happened at a very young age. I remember very vividly when I was about 3 to 5, my dad had gone on a work trip, had to stay at a very specific casino as a hotel. I remember because even though it wasn't near my dad's work, it was near where we lived, and that was part of the reason he went there. I also remember that we had gone to visit him because he had forgotten something, but I don't remember what it was. So around March, April of 2023, I brought this up to my mom when we drove by the casino, asking something along the lines of, "Remember when we went there to bring something to Dad?" She replied, "No, we didn't go there. Only Dad went, and he didn't forget anything." I just shrugged and went along with it, thinking I might have just dreamed that part, as it was pretty long ago for me to remember. The weird part was, about a week later, I casually just said, "Yeah, you might have been right. Maybe Dad went to casino's name, and I just dreamed that we went there, because it was one of his first work trips." My mom asked what I was talking about, and I reminded her of our conversation. She told me that we never talked about that, and that Dad had never been to that casino, or any casino in our state, for work or otherwise, after I was born. I have other memories that are just wrong too. I remember watching the news about the Russia-Ukraine war, and the Russian flag being only blue and red, and the Ukrainian flag being a different shade of blue. I also had friends that my parents claimed that I didn't ever get along with, and people I never hung out with that my parents claim I invited everywhere with me. So I'm not sure what all this is. A glitch? A timeline or universe hop or something? Anyways, thanks for reading. To start, bizarre things happen to me on a somewhat regular basis. When something happens and I'm by myself, I usually just wave it off and assume that my memory or perception is faulty. This was witnessed by another person, though. Recently, I was getting rid of some old items in my house as a sort of spring cleaning ritual. One of the things I decided to donate was an old tablet my wife bought for me back in 2015. It was incredibly slow and I couldn't reasonably use it anymore. So, it went to my local computer store, along with a couple other electronics to be recycled for parts. My wife went with me. We both saw the technician go through the small stack of electronics on the counter, and the tablet was there. And that was the end of it until I found an identical tablet in a box on my closet shelf. We weren't wealthy people, and wouldn't have just bought 2 tablets, but I asked my wife anyway if she bought another one. She of course said no and couldn't explain where the second tablet had come from. I was confused and then turned it on. The screen had the same background as my old tablet, and this one was also clunky and slow. I pulled the stylus out of its slot to check out the tablet a little more, and it had the same broken bit at the end of the stylus. It was my old tablet. It had to be. That is, unless my wife or I casually shelled out a couple $100 extra for a second tablet of the same model, set up the background screen, broke the stylus in the same place as the other tablet, and then just stored it in a box without using it for almost 10 years. But that really doesn't make sense. I can't insist hard enough that we never bought 2 tablets, but the one that's currently in my home can't possibly be here. We donated it. My wife and I both saw it on the counter at the computer store when we left. We weren't drunk, sleep-deprived, or anything. We both have the same memory. I just don't know how to explain this. We've moved twice in the past decade, and no doubt I would have seen if we had 2 tablets while packing and unpacking everything I own multiple times. The box I found the tablet in contained my stuff, and the previous owners of the house didn't leave anything behind when they left the property. So, I just have no idea how this happened. Hey, hi, howdy there, partner. How are you doing on this day of Monday, the 25th of March? Hopefully good. I'm doing pretty good. This was a collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories, by the way, if you weren't aware. Stories where strange things. Things are strange, bizarre, odd things. Yeah. Good stories, in my opinion. Interesting stories, as always. Bizarre, fun to listen to, fun to read. So, hopefully, you all felt the same way about that. About them. I'm going to go out on a limb and say a lot of you do. Because these videos do well. Y'all seem to enjoy them. So, yeah. Before I get into the part of the video where I talk really fast, I want to mention that next week, there will not... Oh, hang on, stretching. I gotta stop doing that while I'm doing my outros. Or I could just pause and continue, but that's not how I do things usually, so. Anyways, next week, there will not be a glitch video. There will be one the second week of April, but not next week. Sorry. There's reasons. Stupid reasons. But reasons nonetheless. So, whenever we get to the word of the week, you'll have 2 weeks to do it. Just... Anyways, hopefully y'all enjoyed the stories. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. I'd appreciate it. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider subscribing, as that helps tremendously. And if you want to join Patreon membership to get early access to content like this, I would be more than grateful of that. It helps the channel. And you get stuff. You just get stuff. So, you can also do a super thanks, which is a tip to the channel. Never expected, always appreciated, and so forth and so on. Yeah. Then on these fancy little Glitch in the Matrix videos, we do this thing we call the Word of the Week. On screen right now, and a few moments prior to this moment in time, is a collection of all of these screenshots of comments left on last week's video with the word of the week. A cacophony of comments, if you will. That actually sounded better than it did in my head. That's the first. Yeah. All these amazing people went above and beyond, left me a comment. I hit my microphone, left me a comment with the word of the week. As such, they get featured, and I appreciate them more than I could say. So, thank you to all of you. You're amazing. Don't forget it. This week, we're dialing it down a little bit. And we're going to have a really simple word of the week. The word of the week this week is homespun. Homespun. It literally means simple and ordinary. Homespun, if you will, could be considered a very homespun word. And don't use this like last time, but it's fun to note that Merriam-Webster, once again, declared a synonym of homespun to be Cracker Barrel, like the restaurant. So if something is Cracker Barrel, it's simple and ordinary. It's homespun, if you will. If you will. If you won't, that's too bad. Anyways, friends, hope you're all having a beautiful week so far. Hope the rest of your week goes well, and I hope I see you again here very soon. We're in the last week of March, the last week of this daily content thing we've been doing. I'm tired, but it's been a good time. Well, that's it, friends. Remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you're the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until then, much love, and of course, sleep well.